1985, Algonquin Provincial Park, a vast expanse of snow-laden pines and frozen lakes in Ontario, Canada, was a realm of primal silence and unrelenting cold. Stretching over 7,600 square kilometers, its dense forests and rugged trails were a crucible for survival used by the Canadian Forces for grueling training exercises. The park's Algonquin inhabitants had long whispered of the Wendigo, a cannibal spirit born of starvation and despair, its emaciated form stalking those who disrespected the land, the glowing eyes and a voice that mimicked loved ones. The Wendigo was said to lure the living into madness, its hunger eternal. Frozen wilderness stepped Corporal Jean-Marc Dubois, a 28-year-old reservist with the Royal Canadian Regiment, a devout Catholic from Quebec City. Jean-Marc was a city-bred soldier, at home in urban drills in the untamed bush, assigned to a week-long survival exercise in Algonquin. He was about to confront a force that defied his faith and training. Jean-Marc's journey to Algonquin was a test of endurance. He boarded a military bus from CFB Petawawa in January 1985, the snow swirling outside, the forest edge a dark smear on the horizon. The survival drill, a cornerstone of the Royal Canadian Regiment's winter training, aimed to hone navigation, foraging, and resilience in sub-zero conditions. Jean-Marc's mission was clear: lead a 5-man squad through a 50-kilometer loop, bivouacking in the bush with minimal supplies. Past daunted him, his urban upbringing left him uneasy in the wild. His only comfort, a rosary from his mother tucked in his parka. His briefing in a drafty Petawawa hangar was led by Captain Andre Gagnon, a stern Franco-Ontarian with scars from a 1970s peacekeeping stint. Gagnon outlined the route, follow the Mizzy Lake Trail, establish camps and signal checkpoints via radio, stay sharp, and ignore the locals' nonsense. He barked, but his eyes lingered on the map, where a red X marked an old Algonquin hunting ground. Jean-Marc nodded, his C7 rifle slung, his pack heavy with gear tent, flint, radio, compass. The squad's banner tales of the Wendigo, a spirit that devoured souls, stirred unease. But Jean-Marc's Catholicism, rooted in Quebec's churches, dismissed them as pagan myths. That first day, Jean-Marc's squad privates LeBlanc, Tremblay, Singh, and Corporal Bouchard trekked into Algonquin, their snowshoes crunching, their breath fogging in the -20 Celsius air. The forest lone, its pine skeletal, its silence oppressive. Jean-Marc's pride in his rank, burned through discipline, anchored him, but the park's vastness gnawed, its snow to deep, its shadows to sharp ... First 3 days were a grind of cold and fatigue. Jean-Marc's squad navigated the Mizzy Lake Trail, their snowshoes sinking into drifts, their faces chapped by wind. They foraged for frozen berries, boiled snow for water, and slept in cramped tents, the fire their only warmth. The forest was a maze of pines and ice, the lakes frozen mirrors. The air heavy with the scent of frost and resin. They found signs of wildlife, moose tracks, owl feathers, but no threats. The drill a test of will more than combat, the old hunting ground, a clearing ring by ancient cedars, was their nightly checkpoint, its air heavy with an unplaceable chill. Duty moments, huddled by the fire, brought darker tales. Private LeBlanc, a menace from Sudbury, spoke of the Wendigo, a spirit born when starvation drove men to cannibalism. It mimics voices. Calls your name, he said, his eyes scanning the dark. Jean-Marc scoffed, his rosary a shield. But his squad's unease grew. Private Tremblay swore he saw eyes in the snow. Private Singh found claw marks on a pine, and Corporal Bouchard, the squad cynic, grew quiet, his jokes fading. Jean-Marc noted the tales in his log, his faith unshaken, but the forest's silence felt alive, its pines whispering when the wind died. By day 4, hunger and cold frayed nerves. The squad's rations hardtack and jerky dwindled. Their faces gaunt, their tempers short. LeBlanc reported whispers at night, faint but human, calling his name in his sister's voice. Jean-Marc dismissed it as exhaustion, but his own dreams grew troubled visions of his mother, pleading in a snowstorm. His pride in leading, a badge of his Quebecois grit, felt heavier, a duty tied to a forest that seemed to watch. On the night of January 17, 1985, a blizzard rolled in from Lake Opeongo, blanketing the forest. Pines barely visible. Jean-Marc's squad bivouacked in the hunting ground, their tent lashed to cedars, their fire sputtering in the gale. A solo circuit to check snares began at 11 p.m. His C7 slung, his flashlight cutting through the snow, his radio crackling with static. The air was arctic, the scent of ice and decay thick, the silence broken only by the storm's howl and the crunch of his snowshoes, his rosary. Tucked in his parka was a quiet comfort, its beads warm against the cold. The clearing loomed, its cedars shrouded, its air heavy with rot. Jean-Marc checked his radio, calling in Du Bois, checkpoint 6, all clear. The static roared, his squad's voices faint, drowned by a low, human-like whisper, Jean-Marc in his mother's voice. His pulse quickened, his flashlight sweeping the snow, its beam swallowed by the blizzard. The whisper grew louder, layered with voices, a chorus in Cree. Join us, vibrating through the ice. His radio crackled, now clear with French prayers, no trooper, not Gagnon, not his team. Jean-Marc called out, "This is Canadian forces. Identify yourself." His voice was lost in the storm, but the whisper intensified, a chilling plea that pressed against his skull. Jean-Marc stopped, his C7 raised, his flashlight trembling, the forest darkened. The snow a frozen maze, the cedars bending inward. The whisper became a scream, a shrill, human-like wail that stabbed his ears, the ground quaking, snow swirling like a vortex. Through the blizzard, a figure emerged, tall, emaciated, its antlered skull-like face glistening with ice, its eyes glowing red. Its limbs twisted like branches, it crouched beyond the firelight, his maw gaping, whispering Jean-Marc's name in his mother's voice, soft but predatory. Jean-Marc's breath caught, his rosary burning through his parka, his voice a whisper, Saint Vierge. The Wendigo's eyes seared, voids that drew his gaze, filling him with dread. The air grew frigid, the temperature plunging, his breath frosting despite his mask. Shadows rose from the snow skeletal figures, their faces starved, their eyes voids. Their Algonquin furs tattered, crawling on frost-bitten limbs. They chanted, "Eat, join us." Their voices a grinding dirge, accusing, "You forgot us." The snow thickened, forming shapes, hands, faces, their voids hollow, their mouths open in silent screams. The forest pulsed, the cedars creaking, their branches clawing, the ground rippling as if alive. Cold, skeletal hands bony, dripping with ice grab his snowshoes, their touch like frozen knives, tugging him toward the clearing center. His radio screamed, the static now a cacophony of French and Cree prayers, drowning his squad's calls, his mind flooded with visions of Algonquin winters, starved hunters, flesh torn in desperation, their screams soaking the snow. The visions weren't his, but they felt real, as if the forest was forcing him to see its hunger. The Wendigo shifted, its form blurring a child with his sister's face, priest with his father's voice, then back to its antlered horror. Each change a stab in his heart. It whispered, "Join us," its voice now his own, mocking his prayers. The skeletal figures closed in, their claws raised, their dirge a knife in his skull. Jean-Marc's scream caught in his throat, his body paralyzed by a terror he'd never known, not in training, not in Quebec's darkest alleys, not anywhere. The Wendigo's assault was not singular, but a cascade of horrors, each form more insidious, designed to break Jean-Marc's mind. Auditory lore, the Wendigo's voice morphed his mother's plea, his sister's laugh, his own screams, each call drawing him toward the clearing's edge, where the snow seemed to swallow light. The whispers layered, a choir of the damned, chanting his sins, neglecting his heritage, doubting the forest's power. Physical marks, cold claws raked his parka, leaving jagged tears, no source in the snow. His skin bore frostbite marks, raw and black despite his insulated gear. As if the Wendigo's touch bypassed flesh, his rosary burned, its beads searing his chest. Betrayal of his faith. Environmental distortion, the forest warped, the cedars twisted into humanoid shapes, their branches forming faces that wailed, the snow post forming footprints that circled him, then vanished. The stars above dimmed, the sky a black void, as if the Wendigo consumed light itself. Psychological invasion, visions flooded his mind, not just starvation, but his own failures. Abandoning his Algonquin roots, failing his squad, surviving while others perished. The Wendigo's eyes projected his face, starved and hollow, accusing him of hunger he hadn't felt yet. Jean-Marc's faith snapped him free, a desperate prayer breaking the spell. He fired his C7 short bursts, the muzzle flash blinding, the bullets vanishing into the snow, leaving no mark on the Wendigo. The figure didn't falter, its scream unrelenting, the hands tightening. rip searing his skin. His radio screamed, "Eat, join us," drowning his cries for help. He stumbled back, wrenching free, his snowshoes snapping, and ran, the blizzard chasing him, the Wendigo's wail a blade in his ears. Gene Mark sprinted through the forest, the pines a black wall, the snow sucking at his boots. The wind howling like a banshee, the dirge followed, a relentless chant. The skeletal figures crawled closing in, the snow's hands clawing at his parka. He glanced back, his heart stopping. The Wendigo stood in the blizzard, its antlers gleaming, its eyes red, the figure's void staring through the snow. The cedar swayed, branches snapping, hands frosting his parka, leaving streaks of ice. Gene Mark prayed aloud. Notre Père, his French raw, but the wail drowned his words, its Greek cadence a curse. Pam's firelight, faint through the storm, signaled his squad's position. Private LeBlanc's voice crackled through the radio, faint but sharp. "Du Bois, where are you?" The light jolted Gene Mark, and he ran toward it, the pines fading, the snow a white sea. The wail faltered, the hands retreating, but the scream lingered, a grinding echo. He reached the camp, collapsing in the snow, his C7 clattering, his breath ragged. LeBlanc, Tremblay, Sing, and Bouchard leapt from the tent, their faces pale, their rifles raised, scanning the blizzard. Dawn broke over Algonquin, pale and blinding, the pines silent but charged with unease. Gene Mark sat by the fire, his hands trembling, his tea untouched. His parka was torn, jagged ribs at the chest, no source in the snow. His skin bore frostbite marks, faint but raw, despite his gear's warmth. LeBlanc, shaken, admitted hearing whispers all week, his Metis heritage now a warning. Tremblay clutched the cross, whispering about his grandmare's tales of spirits. Seeing the squad, skeptic, grew quiet, his eyes scanning the trees. Bouchard, the cynic, scoffed but avoided the clearing, his hands shaking. Gagnon demanded a report, his sternness hiding fear. No spirits, Du Bois righted his hypothermia, but his eyes avoided the hunting ground's direction. Gene Mark searched the clearing at first light, his C7 slung, his heart pounding. The snow was unmarked, no tracks, no claws, only the cedar's endless moan, now sinister, like a laugh. He found his bullets embedded in a pine, their tips frozen, coated with a film like ash. LeBlanc's tale echoed, his warning of "Eat, join us," a weight he couldn't shake. The squad grew quiet, their drills doubled, their flashlights brighter, avoiding the old hunting ground. Gene Mark's faith, once a rock, wavered. He prayed nightly, his rosary a lifeline. But the scream echoed, "Join us," the Wendigo's eyes haunting his dreams, visions of starvation. Frozen bodies, his own face among the dead, accusing him of doubt. His duty to Canada felt tainted, the forest a wound he'd reopened, his parka repaired. Still bore faint rips like scars, a reminder of the hands that grabbed him. Gene Mark resigned a week later, unable to face the forest. Gagnon approved it, his sternness soft. As if relieved, LeBlanc drove him to Petawawa, the pines stretching endless. The snow glinting like eyes, his radio off, crackled once, whispering Gene Mark. He didn't look back, afraid of what he'd see. In Quebec City, he tried to resume his life, taking a factory job, avoiding wilderness talk. But Algonquin clung to him, a shadow that darkened his days. He couldn't sleep without hearing the scream, couldn't cross snow without feeling those skeletal hands. His dreams were haunted by the Wendigo, its eyes red, its dirge echoing, "Eat, join us." Gene Mark stopped attending Mass, fearing the church's silence would summon the wail. He kept his C7 manual locked away, its way to curse and burn his patrol log, hoping to sever the link. Sometimes at night he heard whispers shrill, human-like in his apartment's corners. He never looked, afraid of what he'd see, but the Wendigo's antlers lingered, a stain that wouldn't fade. A year later, LeBlanc sent Gene Mark a photo from a patrol, the Mizzy Lake Trail in the background. In one corner, a faint, blurry shape stood, an antlered figure, eyes red, surrounded by skeletal forms. The photo was streaked with frost, as if pulled from the snow. Gene Mark burned it, his hands trembling, but the scream lingered, a reminder that Algonquin's hunger was never truly gone.